All right, Ted Cruz speaking live right there. It's a breakfast for Texas delegates, I believe, and it's right there in Cleveland. So far, he says, I am fighting for Republicans, but he's not mentioned Donald Trump. I am fighting for Republicans. He seems to be channeling Ronald Reagan from 1976, when Reagan lost to Jerry Ford. I think Ted Cruz wants to make this a Ronald Reagan moment, and he's picking fights with the establishment. That's what we've gotten so far. He's not changing his tune from last night. He's not walking back last night at all. Crystal Wright is with us, joining us now. Crystal, you've been hearing this. What do you make of what Ted Cruz is saying this morning?
I also saw his disgraceful speech last night, and Ted Cruz is no Ronald Reagan. As you know, Stuart, Ronald Reagan endorsed Ford. He came behind the party. He rallied the party, even though he lost the nomination. Ted Cruz is not a class act. And right now, we just heard him talk about, you know, how the establishment party leaders want you to support the party. And he has said that he's not going to support the party. That's what leaders do. In the final hour, when you've lost the race, you don't act like a sore loser. This is a monumental election. We got Supreme Court vacancies waiting, and Ted Cruz wants to make it about himself. I think it's, you know, it's awful. He is no Reagan. I think his political career is over. And he's still out there on the campaign trail. Even this morning at the convention, he's still campaigning.
That's a good point, Crystal. He's speaking this morning, and Donald Trump wraps up the convention with the big speech tonight. Liz?
Yeah, this is a political bet that Trump will lose by Ted Cruz, but he's showing he's fast becoming an asterisk, that he doesn't have the gravitas to unify. He doesn't have the gravitas to unify, and he's making a political bet here that Trump will lose because he's eyeing 2020. He's about dividing and energizing his own base. If that worked, he would be the nominee, and he's not.
What I find strange,
hold on a second, Crystal.
What I find strange is if they knew what he was going to say, the non-endorsement, why do they put him on the stage on the same night that the VP Pence comes out, which should be his coming out party? I find it very odd that that happened, knowing ahead of time that they weren't. I think they thought Cruz was going to be embarrassed and hustled off the stage.
And also, Cruz
is
also fundraising off of his speech.
Okay, Lenore.
And it set up Trump for some fantastic optics because he walks in and he is the bigger man. I actually think it was probably a brilliant move on their part to have him up there saying, oh, actually, I'm the outsider. And Trump comes in and says, it's okay, let him have his day.
Crystal Wright, I have to point out to you that every time Ted Cruz speaks, he gets a standing ovation from those Texas delegates. Hold on a second, Crystal. I'm going to listen in some more to Ted Cruz.
They are designed to protect and perpetuate those in power. Now, on the rules fights that happened on the Rules Committee, I very consciously stayed out of that. In fact, I wasn't in Cleveland. I was out of town. I didn't even arrive till that fight was over. I understand a lot of delegates fought passionately from the grassroots. My one comment that I made when I was asked about the rules,
I got to say that Ted Cruz is rehashing the fights that have been going on for months. He's talking now about the Rules Committee and changes thereof. Crystal, I don't hear much new this morning.
Well, no. Like, when I was watching his speech last night, I called my parents and I was like, am I missing something? When is he going to say Donald Trump? I endorse Donald Trump. And then when he told the crowd to vote your conscience, I mean, it's unprecedented what he did. Then he talks about, oh, I didn't know anything about the Rules Committee. Do we believe that? I predicted this. I wrote a piece for the Toronto Sun News 2 weeks ago, and I predicted that Ted Cruz, nobody was going to know what was coming out of his mouth, and that he would try to sabotage the convention. That's what he did, and I'm not so sure. I think it could play. I think it shows that Donald Trump is magnanimous, right? He has taken the high road, but I also think we're talking about the wrong person today. We're talking about Ted Cruz, the spoiler, instead of Mike Pence, the VP pick, and how Trump is going to unify the party.
All right, Crystal, there's another of those standing ovations for Ted Cruz this morning. Essentially, what Ted Cruz has said today, the morning after the big speech last night, he's still anti-establishment, but not pro-Trump. All right. There's a lot going on this morning. I'm sorry to tell you, Crystal, there's an awful lot going on this morning.
Yeah, I know.
We've got